It all started when the Demogorgon messed up with the electric systems at Hawkins National Laboratory. Soon, even the hospital became a war zone. And before anyone could catch their breath, a large explosion was destroying the Hawkins Starcourt Mall. This isn't a town anymore. This is the most expensive fictional disaster zone ever put on TV. 5 seasons of monsters in bedrooms, kids vanishing, illegal Russian labs under shopping centers, and cracks splitting streets down the middle. We are only just admitting that Hawkins might have offended the universe. And now that it seems the town we have come to love might be completely destroyed, it's time to ask something that must be on the minds of every obsessed fan. How much would it actually cost to rebuild this accursed town? Hawkins was supposed to be a quiet town that barely makes the news, and where everyone knows everyone. But between 1983 and 1987, it turned into the most unlucky town in America, with monsters and evil creatures from the other world literally sinking its teeth into the land. So, when we say we're calculating the cost of rebuilding Hawkins, we're not talking about replacing windows and repainting fences. We're talking about reconstructing the whole town that now lies in ruins. We'll find the estimates for every collapsed building, exploding mall or school, and add it up to see the staggering total needed to rebuild this messed up town. We'll begin with residential homes. When a town is under attack, families suffer first. One of the first families to suffer in the series was the Byers. The Byers house went from a peaceful home housing a loving family into a war zone. In Season 1, the Demogorgon attacks the home and rips through its walls and windows as it tries to catch Will. You know what that means? It means broken walls, shattered windows, and torn up flooring. Alright, let's take out our calculators and do the math of restoring this home. Debris removal, $10,000. Rebuild walls and structure, $40,000. Electric plumbing rework, $15,000. Safety inspections and permits, $5,000. This is already an estimated $70,000. But this is nothing compared to what it will cost to repair the next home. Hopper's cabin. Hopper's cabin wasn't just damaged, it was destroyed. After fights with the Mind Flayer and other supernatural beings, what remained can barely be called a home. The house will need foundation assessments, debris removal, new framing, roofing, insulation, electrical, and plumbing. In fact, we will need to build a brand new house. Cost to rebuild: site demolition, $15,000. Full rebuild, $60,000. Utilities reconnection, $10,000. Add these 3 together and you will get an estimated $85,000. That can get you a brand new home. Season 2 brought the Mind Flayer, which attacked people and damaged the structure of homes in the neighborhood. It chewed through the wood and left toxic residue of upside-down matter. Cleaning this up isn't like picking up debris. Nope, you're looking at a biohazard remediation and deep repairs. Imagine doing this for all the houses that suffered its carnage. Okay, let's stop imagining and actually get to work. First, we will calculate the cost per house. Cleanup and decontamination, $15,000. Structural rebuild, $35,000. Will you look at that? That is already $50,000 per house. But what about the damages made by Vecna shockwaves? Vecna's psychic shockwaves cracked several walls, ceilings, and floors across Hawkins. Even houses that survived will still need their foundation rechecked along with a replacement of housing elements. And that's still super expensive. For these homes, we will use a structural fixed cost. Structural repair and reinforcement, $40,000. Cleanup and permits cost, $10,000. That is another $50,000 for every home. And let's not forget the Demogorgon attack on the Wheeler house in Season 5. In Season 5, a Demogorgon smashes through the Wheeler house, breaks down the walls and furniture of their home, and even tore off doors from its hinges. To restore this house, we will need to demolish unsafe parts of the house, which will cost $12,000, rebuild structure and framing, $50,000, and redo the roofs and interior finishes, $18,000. Add all three together, and this is an estimated $80,000. So what is the total residential damage? First, let's assume there are about 25 severely damaged homes across the town to make up for the unknown number of damaged houses, even though we know there are more. So, one buyer's house is $70,000. One Hopper's cabin rebuild, $105,000. One Wheeler's house, $80,000. 22 other homes from the mine flare and Vecna damage, $100,000 each. Total is a whopping $2,500,000. That's a bill no family in a small town should ever have to pay. And we are only just starting. Section 2, schools. When we talk about the monumental destruction in Hawkins, the schools deserve a spotlight of their own. Not just because kids are involved, but because the damage there was so complete, you'd basically have to rebuild the facilities from scratch. Let's break it down. Hawkins Middle School became one of the first major casualties in Season 2. When the Demo Dogs attacked the school grounds, they broke walls and lockers so badly it will take days to rebuild the school. And let's not forget the electrical damage. Lights flickered on and off as the portals were disrupted, meaning wiring and circuits probably blew up as well and would likely have to be replaced. And most importantly, with upside-down creatures roaming and interdimensional matter dropping on the floors, parts of the building would carry toxic elements, which means deep sanitation protocols must be taken. Structural inspection and repair for damaged walls, floors, and support beams would cost roughly $4 million. It might cost another $1 million to replace wiring, circuits, and lighting overload from the portal interference, while the biohazard sanitation and air filtration would steal another $1 million. That is already a whopping $6 million. But even the high school did not go scot-free. At the end of Season 4, Vecna's gate rupture sent earthquake fissures through the town, which also affected the high school as much as it affected other buildings. But even before then, some townspeople had tried to seek shelter in the school. That means stress on floors and walls from additional load and misuse. It also means cracks in the support beams, damage to gym facilities, and heavy contamination across large indoor areas. Sheltering created even more issues. A destroyed gym, ruined desks, boards, and projectors, damaged hallways and exits from rushed evacuations and emergency use, ruined electrical and plumbing systems. Rebuilding a 1980s school after a major destruction in the US typically takes $8 to $10 million per building, according to real-world construction estimates for schools of similar size and scale. Let's break it down. Structural repair might cost an estimated $3 million. Gym reconstruction and classroom rebuild, $3,500,000. Electrical, plumbing, and HVAC replacement, $1,500,000. Biohazard remediation and environmental containment, $1 million. That is an estimated $9 million. Now, we have to combine the cost of both schools. $6 million plus $9 million is a ground-shaking $15 million. In a normal small town, that alone would be a lifetime budget. But wait, what if I told you that this is one of the smaller numbers in this video? Imagine a massive shopping complex with ice cream parlors, arcades, and hundreds of retail spaces. That was Starcourt Mall. was a huge place of entertainment, but it also had a secret Soviet base beneath its floors where scientists were experimenting with opening a gateway to the Upside Down. But that is not why we are here. In one of the fan-favorite episodes, the mall endured one of the most explosive confrontations in the show. A massive explosion detonated in the Russian facility underneath. This explosion sent shockwaves up through the mall, and the entire mall interior collapsed. The roof caved in, interior hallways caved in, and even the parking structures near the blast site suffered. Let's break down the fortune needed to rebuild this mall. Building a medium-sized shopping mall in the US averages around $24 to $25 million in construction costs. And this is without counting land acquisition and parking garages or entertainment complexes. In Hawkins' case, you'd also have to factor in total structural replacement, since the entire mall structure needs to be torn down and rebuilt, $20 million. Interior shop build-outs M. That is flooring, walls, fixtures, escalators, and lighting, $3 million. Hazardous cleanup, $5 million. Finally, we have parking structures and surrounding damage, which includes pavement and concrete repair, $2 million. Add all that together, and you have $30 million. Yep, paying to rebuild Starcourt Mall would be one of the most expensive reconstruction projects in Hawkins history. In Hawkins, roads regularly split open like someone was cutting it up with a giant knife. By season 4, we even had gaping chasms that swallowed cars. According to U.S. infrastructure cost data, major street reconstruction runs about $1 to $2 million per mile when you also include demolition of unsafe surfaces, earth stabilization, subgrade repair, and new paving. So let's say an estimated $7 million might be enough. But the damage isn't only on the surface. Power lines suffered too, and some electrical transformers were fried. To solve that, we will need to buy a transformer. A single substation transformer can cost well over $1 million to replace. So let's tag an estimated $3 million. Then there's the destruction of the sewage and water systems. Sewage system repair after a large ground movement always requires excavation and replacement of miles of pipe, as well as environmental testing and contamination treatments. This should cost about $200,000 to $500,000 per mile for heavily damaged segments. Adding all the assumed miles, and we might have $2 million in total. That gives us a total cost of $12 million. That number can make city planners scream at the budget spreadsheet. While rebuilding Starcourt Mall, there will be something even more expensive to cover up: the Russian underground bunker. Remember that this is not just a single room, it's a multi-level facility with tunnels, prison cells, labs, and that massive interdimensional laser room that helped open the Upside Down. In real-world demolition planning, removing underground structures is usually more expensive than pulling down a normal building because you have to stabilize the earth and deal with utilities and soil contamination. And now this bunker also has multi-level tunnels and rooms. Tunnel infill alone can cost tens to hundreds of dollars per cubic meter of material. Then there are hidden vaults and cells with concrete boxes in this bunker too, which are far more expensive to break up and remove since you can't just bulldoze them. This means you will need controlled demolition and heavy machinery. There is also the interdimensional laser room with reinforced materials meant to withstand intense forces. This room was built with thick concrete, reinforced steel, and complex mechanical equipment, all of which add even more costs. Now, once all the rooms and tunnels are removed, the soil has to be stabilized so that the surface above doesn't sink or crack. This process alone can make a family bankrupt, as heavy equipment, fill materials, and geotechnical surveys must be used. So, in total, we are estimating $7 million to fully fill, seal, and make the old Russian bunker space safe. When Hawkins Hospital was first introduced, we thought it would be a sanctuary, but it ended up being anything but safe. It even became a danger zone filled with dead bodies. After the When a mind flare attacked, patients and staff had to flee. These creatures wrecked hallways, overturned beds, destroyed medical equipment, and contaminated the whole hospital with blood and alien matter that carried biomaterials. Hospitals aren't cheap to fix, even under normal circumstances, but adding biohazard cleanup and structural repair, and it even becomes worse. Biohazard remediation, especially where blood and bodily fluids are present, can run from $1,500 to $25,000. Don't forget that the electrical components will also have to be fixed. If you add wiring, emergency power backups, and all the specialized medical power systems, you might have about $900,000 to $1,200,000. Let's not forget ventilation, medical, gas lines, oxygen systems, radiology, and sanitation systems that all must meet strict codes. The estimated total cost is $4 million. If you think that is high, check out what it will take to rebuild the tunnels. By season 4 of Stranger Things, Hawkins is filled with interdimensional tunnels that reach under homes, fields, and public land. When these tunnels enter the countryside, farmland loses crops, and maybe even animals. In real life, when agricultural soils are contaminated, the cost of restoring them is as high as the Statue of Liberty. And don't forget the sinkholes, caused by voids beneath the earth. In the US, cost to repair large sinkholes can easily be $50,000 to $200,000 or more just to stabilize and fill an affected area. Then, to make it worse, when the tunnel beneath Hawkins are revealed as part of Vecna's psychic web, lands that may have been stable will become unstable, requiring soil, reinforcement, and drainage systems to prevent collapse and water accumulation. Add all of those together, and you might get an estimated $14 million. Yes, those tunnels may be out of sight, but their damage to the wallet will be quite obvious indeed. By the end of Stranger Things Season 4, Hawkins doesn't just suffer individual destruction. The entire town is destroyed in a way that would bankrupt any community. What began as a supernatural horror at the beginning of the season grows into what characters themselves compare to an earthquake so powerful it's reported as a 7.4 magnitude. It kills residents, splits the ground, and leaves large chunks of the town condemned and unsafe. Any town hit by massive earth cracks like this would face catastrophic infrastructure failure. In real-world disaster reconstruction, even moderate earthquake damage to buildings and roads can cost tens of millions of dollars in repairs. Apart from the rifts, there are fire outbreaks from ruptured gas lines igniting and electrical systems. And you know, fire damage means more affected buildings, suit damage, and the destruction of electric and safety systems. Real fire reconstruction costs often run into the millions per block in small cities. To make it even worse, parts of Hawkins will become uninhabitable. These zones will need to be demolished and hazardous material will need to be removed so rebuilding can begin. Demolition alone sometimes costs millions. And if you think that is all, don't forget that thousands of Hawkins residents are now displaced. They will need temporary housing and later reconstruction support, which could mean emergency funds. The US alone often dedicates billions of dollars to cover shelter and economic losses after major natural disasters. Taking all this into account will add up to a massive $300 million. That money can solve the economic poverty of at least 2 countries. Season 5 of Stranger Things picks up after the town of Hawkins has already been left in ruins. The scars from the rifts, military occupation, and the upside-down spreading influence are everywhere. This final season now arrives with a full-blown siege of the town's remaining infrastructure and communities. Near the town center, bridges and overpasses are compromised. Real-world bridge repair can easily exceed $3 million due to re-engineering and new construction requirements. Finally, it will cost over a total of a whopping $392,520,000 to fully rebuild Hawkins. Every smashed home, collapsed school, leveled mall, torn up street, and upside down tunnels adds up to that insane jaw-dropping total. If you thought surviving a Demogorgon was wild, try surviving the bill to fix this town. But here's the kicker. We've only counted what's happened so far. What about the finale? Who knows what kind of chaos and monster mayhem will hit next? If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It helps a lot.